And good morning. Happy first Sunday of the new year, January 7th, 2024. Kicking off our adult Sunday school class for this morning. We are back to continuing our journey from the events of Job to the birth of Moses on our way to the Exodus, getting some historical background from Egyptologist David Roll and his New Chronology timeline, and getting our scripture from the scripture. Getting our ultimate authority from God's word to us, explaining all this stuff and sharing all the stuff with us. So we are going to be picking up in the scripture we left off in, which is Exodus chapter 6, verse 16. If you'll please find your way there. So this event records the death of Joseph's brother Levi. Exodus 6, verse 16. We are about the year 1568 BC. Exodus 6:16, we're told, and these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the length of Levi's life was 137 years. So they still lived a little while back then. That's going to start dropping off real quick here. But Levi had three sons, and Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. From these three sons will be the three divisions of the Levites that have different responsibilities and duties towards the tabernacle and later on the temple. Moses and Miriam and Aaron come from Levi's son Kohath. Levi has a daughter named Jochebed, and Kohath has a son named Amram who marries his aunt Jochebed. And their kids are Miriam, Aaron, and Moses. And so we're in the lifetime of Moses' parents, but the kids aren't born just yet. So here is a computer rendering of what we've discovered for the house of Joseph and his tomb and the tombs of his brothers. Levi now being buried here. We have the tombs of Simeon and Levi, and they're the sacrifices that were made separately at their separate times of death. They have a shared tomb here. We have the signet ring that Simeon was given that mentions the authority of his brother that was ended up being Joseph, of course, as he was sent to take charge of some of the mining expeditions. And so here is a possible identification of the tombs of the brothers. So the joint tomb of Simeon and Levi right here, and Joseph's right there. And here are the daggers that were found in the tomb of Simeon and Levi, which is interesting, of course, with their famous account in Genesis about taking revenge on the town of Shechem for what happened to their sister Dinah. So they have a shared tomb together, and these blades are found with them as well. So interesting stuff. So 1568 BC, it's been 20 years or so since the events of Job. We're still in Middle Bronze Age 2A. China is being ruled by Tai Gang of the Shang Dynasty. Egypt is being ruled by Kjendjer of the 13th Dynasty, still in that second intermediate period between the Middle Kingdom and the future New Kingdom. So let's see, let's go to right there. So this is the guy Kjendjer, who's currently ruling Egypt. Over in Assyria, it's being led by Yasmah-Adad. We've got this from this guy, from his time frame. A line drawing of an ancient Assyrian royal scroll. And then in Larsa, we have King Rimsin, who's their last king. Babylon, King Sin-Muballit, father of Hammurabi. And in Byblos, we have Yantin-Ammu. So at the time of Levi's death, looking at the line of Christ through Judah, Judah's son Perez would be right now about 106 years old, his son Hezron about 93, and his son Ram about 35. So we got most likely those three still alive at this time. So this brings us to some changes we're going to see in the lineup here. Let's see. The last thing we looked at was on the map. There's the pyramid of Kjendjer, but let's zoom out from that. Not much left of that guy and what we had of his pyramid. But as we zoom out here, so this is the stuff we're looking at, where Larsa and all that's over here, Byblos over there, of course, China way over further. But over in China, we have a new emperor now as we're counting down to the birth of Moses. 1567 BC, we get Emperor Zhao Jia of the Shang Dynasty. His actual name was Zi Gao, and he took over from his brother Tai Gang. And he kept the capital there at Yanxi, ruled for 17 years. And after he died, he was given the name Zhao Jia. And again, that just boggles me to no end, that the name these guys are known by is given after they've lived and died. I mean, like I used the example, I grew up under President Reagan. Don't call him President Bob. He's not Bob, he's Ronnie Reagan. You know, I don't know. It's just such a foreign concept to me, but the world doesn't operate according to me, and it doesn't have to. And so it's amazing to me how different cultures do things differently and how these people are remembered by names assigned to them after they die, not through what people knew them as they were living their lives. Just totally, literally foreign concept to me, but that was the case. Yeah. So this brings us to an interesting time where Sin-Muballit, king of Babylon, he abdicates the throne due to his failing health. And now we're about 40 years before the birth of Moses. And this brings us to the famous Hammurabi, king of Babylon. Let's see, he is right here. And this is from the top of his famous law code. What Hammurabi is most famous for is the code of Hammurabi. He did other things, but that's pretty much his reputation now. Hammu, the Ammu in Hammurabi, is similar to over in Byblos, their king Yantin Ammu. It's that same thing. It refers to the Amorite sun god. And so these folks, a lot of these folks in Mesopotamia were worshiping their different versions of the same god. In Yantin Ammu and Byblos, his name means Ammu has given. For Hammurabi, his name means Ammu is my great one. So very much they were in the habit of incorporating the name of God in their names, which the Lord's people have done as well. So again, his father gave up the throne due to failing health. While Hammurabi is king, he conquered Larsa, Eshuna, Mari, kicked out Isme-Dagan, the king of Assyria, and forced his son Mut-Ashkar to pay tribute. So pretty much all of Mesopotamia comes under Babylon here. What else we got from this guy? So here's the area during his time frame here. There's the Persian Gulf. Limestone from this time frame. Yeah, so here's the law code is written on this, and that's put at the top here. And he says he got it from the sun god Shamash or Hamash, who there's some connection to him and Noah's son Ham and the sun worship, which I find kind of funny after a year of flood having a sun worship. Yeah, I can understand that. Let's see, the tablet of Hammurabi. And there's a copy of his stela, which is the big thing, and that goes way back before that. So, okay, so this guy Hammurabi. Let's go back to the main one there. That law code. Again, he claims he got it from the sun god, Babylonian god of justice as well. Now, this isn't the first law code in this area of Sumer and Mesopotamia. We've talked about one a while back, the code of Ur-Nammu, which was focused on compensating victims of crime. Here, the law of Hammurabi, this is one of the first ones to actually talk about punishment, and that being more of the emphasis here. Different punishments for different crimes, and has innocent until proven guilty, things like that. Limits on what you could do to take retribution. And so many actually lifted him up as a god while he was still alive, which didn't happen too often. You had to be pretty spiffy for that to happen. He was known as a great conqueror. He submitted himself to the god Marduk, a national god of Babylon. And but over time, the focus on him became less on his military stuff and more on his law code. That became a big deal. A lot of later rulers in Mesopotamia, they would try to connect themselves to Hammurabi here. Try to say, hey, I'm like him, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Even after the empire that he built ended up collapsing not long afterwards, he's still looked to as a model ruler. Many kings try to claim that they're related to him. We didn't discover him until the late 19th century, the 1800s, as we're exploring all this stuff and uncovering it. It's not like, and it amazes me, it's not like, okay, people who lived in this time passed on their history to the next generation, to the next generation, and there's an ongoing realization and ongoing awareness of the history before that led to their present. There's been so much history that's been forgotten. I mean, again, Egyptology is only a couple of 100 years old. It's amazing to me how much was not retained. But that's the beauty of the Lord's word and how there is such an impression upon the Lord's people to pass things on to your next generation. Before Moses started writing down, there was oral tradition, and that they were very, very meticulous. And there's actually some beautiful things in the Hebrew wording and phrasing that actually help in a form of mnemonics, which is a method of memorizing and remembering. So there were things that were made easier to recant. Sister Minnie has a song about the books of the Bible. And so there are different things that are done. And so it's beautiful ways that the Lord has inspired and encouraged and commanded, actually, the retaining of the knowledge of his people, the story of his people. So when I see how much has been forgotten, and then people try to say, this is the big history of the Bible, yeah, whatever. No, we've had the right history all along, and we've never lost sight of it. Y'all are still figuring yourselves out. So let's not have that contest. So Shamshi-Adad had expanded his Assyrian empire, but it's going to fragment after he dies, and while Babylon gets bigger. A lot of these nations coexist at the same time. You hear, okay, there was Egypt, then there was Assyria, then there was Babylon, then there was Persia, then there was Greece, and then there was Rome. Well, no, they coexisted, and at different points in time, one was higher and mightier than the other. And so, yeah, there were times when one completely wiped out the other, but they coexisted for a while. Assyria and Babylon are coexisting right now in their old kingdoms. But Babylon is rising up in dominance, and Assyria will be submitted under Babylon at this point in time. So a little place called Elam, right over here, which has a city of Susa, that's where the book of Esther takes place under the Persian Empire, much later. So Elam tries to start a war between Hammurabi in Babylon and the kingdom of Larsa down over here. So Hammurabi and Larsa and their king, they make an alliance when they figure out what these Elamite folks are doing. And so they crush the Elamites, but Larsa wasn't a lot of help. So Hammurabi got mad at them and he turned on them. So basically Elam got what they wanted afterwards. They just weren't around to see the end result. And so, yeah, so all that kind of intrigue happening between these little petty states and city states and all that stuff. He had a big war with Assyria, again, taking Isme-Dagan out of power, putting his son Mut-Ashkur in place. So that's kind of that stuff on him. So let's talk about his law and the things that are in his law. I'm sorry, we got other tablets from him as well. We have 55 letters that he wrote. And we have a lot of things that basically deal with running an empire, trying to make some changes to some errors in their calendar, taking care of livestock, all that stuff. So this law code of Hammurabi, right here, this big thing that's now in the Louvre in Paris. 282 laws, all sorts of different topics. Again, it's not the earliest surviving law code, but this is the big one that's really influential, the Code of Hammurabi. Both the accused and the accuser have opportunity to provide evidence. There's the phrase lex talionis, which means eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Basically, that's the limit of what you can exact in compensation for losses. So this was placed in public for all to see, written in Akkadian, which is now replaced the Sumerian language. And what else do we want to say here? Hammurabi is so famous as a lawgiver. He's one of 23 lawgivers that's in the U.S. House of Representatives in the building there. Moses is in the center, and he's one of them. He's also in the on the south wall of the U.S. Supreme Court building. Now, at the time of all this discovery, late 1800s into the early 1900s, there's this German guy, an Assyriologist who studied Assyria, Delitzsch. He gave a lecture in Berlin in front of German's Kaiser and their wife and his wife. And he said, Moses just copied the law of Moses from the Code of Hammurabi. Well, at this time, the nations were still somewhat Christian nations, and they're like, no, we're gonna, not associate with you. That's kind of out there. And in fact, there's some interesting stuff. You can look it up online, comparisons. Lots of people say, oh yeah, Moses just copied the law of Moses from the Code of Hammurabi. You'll see some amazing differences too, if you look for them, and the beauty and honor and integrity and true justice that's in the law of Moses compared with the Code of Hammurabi. But that's not all we got from Hammurabi. We also got an early video game, because that's what really counts, right? So here's this game. Back before there were this thing called graphics, there were actual games on the computer that you played by typing. The game would come out typed, and then you would choose your own adventure, and you would type in responses, and different things would happen based on your. So this is a game called Hammurabi, spelt with one M. So the game consists of 10 rounds, where the player, you're the ancient Babylonian king Hammurabi. You manage how much of your grain to spend on crops for the next round, feeding the people, purchasing additional land, and dealing with random variations in crop yields and plagues. Yeah, there was a Sumer game inspired by the Sumerian game that was much more in depth and text-based. That was intended for children, developed from 1964 to 66 by a school teacher named Mabel Addis and someone at IBM named William McKay. And so let's take a look at this example, the screenshot here. How many bushels do you wish to feed your people? 1,000. Hammurabi, think again, O mighty master. You have only 900 bushels of grain. Now then, how many bushels do you wish to feed your people? 650. How many acres do you wish to plant with seed? 350. You starved 68 people in 1 year. Due to this extreme mismanagement, you have not only been impeached and thrown out of office, but you have also been declared national fink. So long for now. Ready.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, this is like in the late 60s, early 70s that these things are happening and being developed. Yeah. Now, this game here, Hammurabi, influenced many later strategy and simulation games. This is an antecedent, a precursor to city building games that we have today that are fairly popular, actually. So, any thoughts or reactions on the man Hammurabi and all that stuff? Good?
I think although he doesn't have a lot of Moses, he was influenced because you have either God or Satan. I think he was influenced.
There you go.
Good.
Yeah.
A lot of those rules.
Absolutely. It was a definite improvement over the lack of that from beforehand. So one of the young nations mentioned was Mari. So let's go to Mari. Mari is right here. Here's the Euphrates, there's the Tigris rivers. So that's about where this is. Assyria's up here, everything else down there. So Mari. Here is a ziggurat in Mari. It's kind of the area we're talking about here. There's more stuff over there. There's some of this cuneiform writing here, which looks somewhat Asian to me, actually. But the cuneiform, that's where they write in the clay, and they take this They take this wedge-shaped stylus, and they take this clay rectangle in their hand that was still moist, and they would turn their hand and the wedge to make these different marks in here. And people could understand this. Not an alphabet, but it was something. So here's the area we're talking about with Mari. Now we're seeing different types of culture and artifacts and representations of things. There's something about some of these folks that just, I get a kick out of. Something we haven't seen before with these folks is how they do the eyes. It almost reminds me of when I was a kid, these little color form things that you would color and then cut out and you put them in the oven and they are. Anyway, I thought this was just so cool to see the different depictions of life and people and how they're actually being given these nice big eyes. So this is the area of Mari that we're talking about. That's showing King Zimri-Lim being invested with the kingship here. So we see the different things from this time frame. What was the size of Mad Hatter's hat? I don't remember, but that looks kind of right. So here they are excavating and discovering all this stuff, and that's back to an earlier time frame. So yeah, so this place, Mari, their new king, their king Zimri-Lim. We'll just leave it right there. I think I know someone who looks like that. Anyway, so we've got a new king now, Yasmah-Adad. So let's actually see what we got on him. So there's another cuneiform tablet here. This guy, youngest son of Shamshi-Adad from Assyria, and he's put over this area of Mari, put on the throne of Mari by his father after they had a successful military attack. The last king of Mari, Yadin-Lim, had been assassinated. So you've got Shamshi-Adad, you've got his son Yasmah-Adad over here, and then his brother Imshi-Dagan, the other son, over the southeast. So you got the father putting these two sons in place. The sons, Yasmah-Adad, Imshi-Dagan, they had fancy titles, they ruled in their capitals, but it seems like pretty much they were just puppets of their dad and doing their father's will. But here's what's funny about this guy, Yasmah-Adad. What's most famous about this guy is his father criticizing him. We've got letters between the family. He's accused of being lazy, self-indulgent, not applying himself to his kingly duties, chided for dallying with women, abandoning his duties for his sexual pleasures. Correspondence between the father and the sons we found in the archives at Mari. And so he was ridiculed frequently by both his brother Isme-Dagan and his father. He was accused of being inactive in his leadership. Here's his character was attacked with a letter from his dad, Shamshi-Adad the first. Here's a quote from his dad in this letter to Yasmah-Adad over Mari here. How long do we have to guide you in every matter? Are you a child and not an adult? Don't you have a beard on your chin? When are you going to take charge of your house? Don't you see that your brother is leading vast armies? So you too, take charge of your palace, your house. So then the son complains to the brother. This is what daddy wrote to me. Now, how can I be a child and incapable of directing affairs when daddy promoted me? How is it that, although I grew up with daddy from when I was tiny, now some servant or other has succeeded in ousting me from daddy's affections? So I'm coming to daddy right now to have it out with daddy about my unhappiness. Going to see the big guy. Yes. So there we have it. So it's not always boring. So counting down to the birth of Moses, 1564 BC, takes us to 1 Chronicles 6:47. I'll read that for us. You're just one verse. 1 Chronicles 6:47. I actually got a new book that I'm very excited about, which I am not going to, well, let's see. I may bring it for show and tell one Sunday, but basically the title of the book is All the Genealogies of the Bible. Yeah. Can't wait, huh? See, now I have to bring it. So what we see here, but what's nice about it is it shows the connections. It's not just a list of names. We already have that. But who are these people? What's their connection to each other and what time frame and what's going on in the world around them? So very much kind of helping to make sense of all that, those genealogies. Person spent 20 years putting this together and it just came out earlier in 2023. So in 1 Chronicles 6:47, mentioned how we have the line of Levi. He's got 3 different sons, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Well, in the line of Levi's son Merari, we have Mushi, about 51 years old, fathering Mahli, being born about this time, basically estimating, putting these things together. First Chronicles, chapter 6, verse 47. First Chronicles 6:47. That's 48. Yeah. The son of Mahli, the son of Mushi, the son of Merari, the son of Levi. So again, when Exodus chapter 1 tells us about the population growth of the people, we have a lot of that recorded in First Chronicles of these generations. So 1558 BC now brings us to 30 years since the events of Job. We've already covered a decade here this morning. We get a new pharaoh in Egypt, Pharaoh Mermesha. Check this guy out here. I think it's chair needs some WD-40. So here's this guy, Mermesha, the new pharaoh. Looks like he reigned from the capital of Memphis. We've got two big statues. One was probably set up in Memphis. There's some quotations about being the overseer of the troops or a general. So he wasn't related to the last pharaoh, Kjendjer, and he doesn't have royal bloodline. So he possibly had a military coup to take over, or possibly just a political one. But this is the new pharaoh, and there's the stuff being uncovered and then restored here. So that is Pharaoh, how was his name pronounced? Mermesha or Imrimesha, something like that. Yeah. So now we're 30 years before the birth of Moses in 1556 BC. And possibly around this time frame, 1551 or so, Exodus chapter 2, verse 1. We have a man from the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi. So the man from the house of Levi is Levi's grandson through his son Kohath. So Levi, Kohath, Amram. So there's the son, a man from the house of Levi, went and married a daughter of Levi. Levi's daughter is Jochebed, sister of Kohath. So Amram married his aunt Jochebed. And so that's taking place here. And the family will be coming not too long down the line here. New emperor in China, 1550 BC, Yong. His actual name was Dian. He took over from his brother. So we got three brothers in a row now. He still keeps Yanxi as the capital. He rules for 12 years, and the name he's given after he dies is Yong. The economy starts to go down under his rule. So things aren't looking good over there in China at the moment. Wind down here. Let's see. Oh, what happens there? There we go. Okay, so here we go. Another new pharaoh. Again, this 13th dynasty is kind of a weak point for the Egyptians. The Israelites are very much growing and being very influential, of course, coming through Joseph. And that's kind of a small thing there. What is it? A cylinder seal. Bear the cartouche of the pharaoh. So that in the circle right there is called the cartouche. And it's got the pharaoh's name in it right there. So that's this pharaoh guy. And his name was Inyotef, also known as Sehetepkare Intef. We don't know much about him, probably ruled from Memphis like the other guy. 1548 BC, we're now 40 years after the events of Job, most likely. It brings us to yet another pharaoh in Egypt's 13th dynasty. This guy, we don't even have his whole name here. Something Seth or Seth Meribre. And there's a talent from his time frame, Stella. And so Stella is just basically a tall block of stone that they carve on. So he also probably ruled from Memphis, and he probably took over the throne and usurped the throne from the other guy. So not a great time in Egypt amongst the powers that be. And then we get Isme-Dagan, same year, 1548, now over Assyria. Yeah, he takes over from his dad. And then we have the genealogies. We have in the line from Joseph to Joshua, through Joseph's son Ephraim. We have in this line Laadan, about 20 years old, fathering Ammihud, as we're getting closer and closer to Joshua as well. So this is actually a good point to wind down, because we are going to be picking up next week with the strong rulers in Egypt coming out that Moses is going to be born under, and seeing what causes this change and what happens here. How we've got Egypt, again, there's the area up in the north of the Delta where most of the Hebrews are, and there's the area in the south, and how Egypt has had its different rulers over the different areas, and it's when they're united that Egypt is strong, and right now they're kind of weak. So while the Hebrews are having a big influence in the north, folks in the south is going to rise up, and they're not going to be taken too kindly to these foreigners, and so there's going to be this resistance, and we'll see how this all plays out starting next week. But again, good stopping place for right now, winding down to about 20 years before Moses is born. So yeah, these changes are about to hit. But closing out for this morning, any reactions, thoughts, or comments or questions on this morning's class? All good. Let's close that here. And let's see. So Sister Alyssa, Sister Catherine, if you want to play an exciting video game, there's this Hammurabi game you can look up and try to play about farming in Babylon. Yes. So with that, we'll go ahead and stop our screen share, stop our recording. Let's get ready to go before the Lord in song.